All right. You know what time it is. It's Technology Tuesday. So we are back in the building. Greg Russell, Jerry Franklin Poe, Technology Tuesday, every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you practical knowledge, practical applications. You got practical solutions for your business. So, Greg, I know we were having some discussions behind the scenes earlier this week, and we thought it would be a good topic to share with the folks who follow, who listen, who tune in to glean insights from your knowledge base. So, do you want to start it off, or you want me to start it off? How would you like to go?
Yeah, man.
You got?
Switching up
Can
the
you hear
line.
me?
Can you hear me? You got me?
Yeah, you cut off for a little bit.
Okay, cool. If I
Yeah, it's like you're cutting off, or somehow you're cutting off when you're talking. I don't know what's going on. Like you. Like, yeah, I can't hear you.
changing up the mic, can you hear me now?
Yep, yep, I got you now. It's almost like that microphone is trying to like, it's like almost like the noise cancellation is canceling you out.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what I was doing. But this one, I got to be careful because it will pick you up. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. With that,
Okay.
guys, we got an exciting episode for you today. We're going to talk about one of the most important things in business, and that is credit card fees. We're going to discuss the consumer side and the merchant side. Everything you need to know about. Are you getting ripped off? Are you not charging enough? We're going to talk about it today on Technology Tuesday. If you are watching us live, in the comments, get hashtag live. Let us know you're tuning in from. And if you're catching us on the replay, let us know you're watching the replay. We really love that. And if you have any questions about this topic as we go through it, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to answer your questions. With that, we're about to get started right now. All right. Jerry, can you hear me now? Is it still clipping on us?
Yeah, I got you. You're good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, man, tell us about what you experienced. I know when we were talking, you were saying that you had an experience that
So this whole the like over like within the last since COVID, I think the trend started around COVID of passing on the processing fees to the consumer. And it was like, oh, things, COVID was like, oh, things are tight, businesses are suffering. And it's like, okay, well, we need to stay in business. So we're going to, if you use a credit card to pay for something, we're going to charge you for it. And it was cool with like, small mom and pop shops, small business, like, oh, it's your local restaurant that like, is not a major chain. You just accepted like, yeah, okay, you're going to help them out if you didn't have, if you, because they would charge you one thing for cash or if you were using a debit card, and they would charge another thing if you were using a credit card. But recently, I had an experience because I was at getting an oil change, and when I was there to get an oil change, they came back with like, "Oh, you need some other stuff done too." So it was like, "All right, well, I guess I got to do it because I'm here, and do this thing and this thing and this thing." And then when it came time to cash out, they were like, "Okay, here's the amount," and I was like, "All right, great, bet. Like, let's just pay for it." And most of us aren't carrying around an extra $1,000 in our pockets of cash. Like you might have cash on you, but if you weren't thinking about that it was going to be something because you were just going there for one thing. So then I put out the credit card. They're like, "Oh, we gotta upcharge you for that because we got a new system." I'm like, "Really? You're like a major business car dealership, chain. Like it's not like a small shop." So, because in my mind, like I haven't seen the trend taking place at major institutions, not like your Best Buys or your Walmarts or your Targets or your Outback or those major restaurants or places that do business aren't passing on the credit card fees. It was a little bit of a shock to do it. So I posted about it. The feedback I got back from the post was it's like it was my error. Like I should know better. Like um as if I don't know how processing fees and credit card fees work. And I'm like, yeah, I've been processing credit card payments for over 20 some years. I've never passed it on to the consumer. Even during COVID, I never changed it up to say, let me upcharge someone. Because typically in my business, if I give someone a quote and I tell them that here's what it's going to be on the invoice, and if they choose to pay that invoice with a credit card, it's kind of weird or awkward to be like, all right, client, I gotta now charge you more because you ordered these books or you ordered this service or you ordered this. I came to speak for you, and now because you don't want to write a check, you're doing a credit card. I gotta now charge you more because you processed it differently. So I just thought it was interesting because if this, it's people are starting to accept it, right? This is like a business practice where people just are accepting the fact that they should pay the company's processing fees, not really knowing that for years that's just been the cost of doing business. The businesses write that off their taxes. It's not like the business is hurting tremendously because the processing fees have just been a process. Like if you have, so someone said to me, um, would you still accept paying the processing fees if you were doing $1 million in processing fees? And I'm like, well, if I'm doing $1 million in processing fees, that means I'm doing $30 million in transactions. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be crying that much over to paying $1 million. Like, it's not like the you're not still making a profit off of the transaction. You're making a profit. It's just not as much of a profit if someone pays you cash. But that's just the price of doing business. Like you give the consumer, you give the client as many options as you possibly can to pay you. You don't punish them for choosing one of those options. That's just my opinion.
That's just your opinion. Okay. And I think you meant 300 million in in sales if you
Yeah,
were,
whatever it is, whatever.
which is a way lot more. Yeah, listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion, man, and I think, I would love to hear, your opinion. How do you feel about companies passing on credit card fees? You let me know, if you accept that, if you don't accept that, if you like that. I'll share with you some research on what it says in just a second. But I'll tell you, Jerry, as a digital marketer who sometimes set these things up for clients over the last few years, the credit card companies, it's not necessarily the business is trying to, quote unquote, pass on the fees because they don't want to pay it. It's typically because they are trying to save money in areas because they can't save money in other areas. Like, things are going up now. We got, they got tariffs to deal with, so they're looking at what ways can we stay profitable. And if you notice, there have been quite a few businesses that just are being shut down. For example, um, one of the restaurants that I used to frequent, it was a Salad and Go. And here in Texas, they closed down all of them except for one. And they just all of a sudden just shut them all down. And, this is just, I've seen it over and over where businesses are just not surviving, and they're closing doors. So I think some businesses are looking for ways to, what ways can they save money because things are challenging. With that said, when I've been setting things up for some clients and they have a new processing fee, I'm sorry, a new processor, the option came, hey, do you want to pass the fees over to your clients, yes or no? And I had one company was like, no, we don't want to do that, Jerry. This kind of, they've been doing this for a long time. That's just a fee that is a cost of doing business. And as a business, you want to offer your clients the best um, experience, and maybe adding that fee is not necessarily the best experience. And I completely understand, it's not the best experience for you, especially when you're not, expecting it, or that wasn't the way it has been for all these years. And so one company said no, they don't want to pass those on, and another company was like, yeah, we need to charge a surcharge to cover these fees. And so I think it's an interesting topic. I think that a lot of people, have their opinion on how they feel about it. And I'm going to pull up some research here. Uh-oh, I think I lost it. Hold on. Some research here. Yep, boom. On when we uh, ask this question, here's what consumers say. All right, so consumer psychology on fees. Most have a negative perception. This is the most common. Most common if you get hit with these
Are you
extra.
showing it on the screen? Is it on the screen?
No, no, no. I'm just reading it out loud. The majority of consumers view added fees as unfair, especially when they are visible at checkout. People feel like merchants nickel and dime them, even if it's a small amount. The framing effect, okay, it says consumers tolerate fees better when they are built into the price up front rather than added as a surcharge. So, meaning $100 product with a $3 fee feels worse than just $103 price tag with no fee, right? And so as a business owner, this is really important. You may want to think about this, right? How are you positioning your stuff? How does it look, right? So would you rather add the fee later and have people feel not good about it, or just build it in there and they don't, you built it in. The trust factor, if the fee
Right.
is
So
positioned as passing on rising costs from the card companies versus extra money for the merchant, it feels slightly more justified, but still stings. So that's basically what some of the data research says about this particular topic.
well, that's exactly it. I mean, it's not as if um I'm anti-capitalist. It's not as if I'm anti-fees. It's not as if I'm like I don't understand business. Like, look, at the end of the day, when you get into business, everybody's not going to succeed. Like, you think people knew COVID was going to hit and like they were going to go out of business? I don't feel sorry. I don't feel bad or feel sorry for anybody staying in business or going out of business. I'm completely neutral to it because if you say that you believe in capitalism, that's how capitalism works. It's survival of the fittest. Like, it's like people say they want a capitalist society, but then they don't want to deal with the results of capitalism. So if you truly believe in capitalism, everybody's not going to succeed. Some businesses are going to fail because they are not mastering all the aspects of the game of being in business. Which means if you have higher costs, then you got to figure out also how to increase your revenue. You got to look at how do I market more? How do I bring in more sales? And then, yes, you always want to look at how you can lower the costs that you have to increase your profit margin. But the part about making the customer feel punished for choosing a payment method is interesting psychology. So I agree with what you're saying in terms of the framing. Well, it's one thing if you notify your customers that your rates are going to go up, because then they have a choice to decide before I come in to use the service. It's another thing to say, okay, use our service, and then before you go to pay for the service, oh, by the way, because you're using this payment method is more for you. So it's a matter of you told me one amount at the beginning and I agreed to that amount, you did the service. And now because of how I'm paying you, you're charging me another amount. It's like, well, you should have just told me up front what the situation was, then I can make a decision before we move forward. So I've seen a lot of, and this is even before, like, right, we can go way, way back, right, to the idea of if you pay in full, it's this amount. If you pay in payment plans, it's this amount, right? And when you add up the amount that you pay for the payment plan, it's actually more than what it'd be if you paid it all in full, right? We know about this, right? We know about this from our experience going to different events, and people say they make an offer from the stage, but you know up front if I do the two payment option, what it's going to be. It's not as if they said, here's the amount, but we have a two payment option. And when you get back to the back of the room, they tell you later the two payment option is more than what everybody else was. They tell you up front what it is. And so my thing is, if you're going to do that, if you're going to let people know about the fees, or you're going to actually pass on the fees to the customer, don't move in silence. Don't surprise them. Let them know that this is an option that we had to choose for our business, and the customer, now the consumer, can decide whether they want to still be a partner or a patron of your business. Um, Doing it after the fact to me is kind of like it. I won't use the word sting. I guess sting is a word for it, but it's kind of like it's a little shady. Like if you're doing it like after the fact, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, by the way,
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
just let people know. There was no signage to say, hey, for credit card purchases we charge a processing fee.
Yep.
Like, and the person I was talking to, like, look, I understand when you go to certain apps, right? Ticketing apps, nonprofit donation apps, and they say, "Would you like to pay the processing fee for this donation?" And you make a decision, right? You have to decide. When you go to like, was it Eventbrite or whatever it is, and it's like the ticket might be one thing, but then the processing fee is added on there to up. And I understand that there's a transparency in all that, right? Before you actually make the decision, you can decide to do it. But when you're telling somebody this is the amount, and then when they go to make the payment, we're like, oh, because you use this, now it's different for you. It doesn't hit the same. So I understand why a company might want to do that, but at the end of the day, for how many years now has Visa, Mastercard existed, and companies just accepted the fee? It's not as if all of a sudden processing fees and merchant fees have quadrupled. Like, we're talking about percentages here, and people are acting or assuming as if it, like, we went from 3.5% to like 25%, and
Right.
now they can't handle it anymore.
Right.
Nah, it's still a small percentage.
Yeah. Well, let's let's shift gears here. Let's go to the other side of it, right? So, we are in business and we have to deal with credit card companies and we have to pay these merchant fees. Now, whether we decide on passing those fees on or not, and this is what I learned over the years, is that if you have a merchant account, okay, and I'm not talking about a one that has a standard fee like PayPal and or Stripe. But if you have a merchant account, and you have any say over those fees, you can ask and check to see if you can reduce your fees. Most people, once they deal with it when they're first setting it up, they get it going, and then they typically just never, unless there's a reason for them to change or look at it, they typically don't. I know for me, for a number of years, I didn't even consider mine. But these fees and exchange rates change, and you can often shop for better fees. And what I learned is that you should actually look to see if you can get better rates every single year. And so many people don't. So this is like real important. If you're processing, you should definitely check to see if you can get better rates with your merchant account every single year. And you'll be surprised what you'll be able to find in terms of better deals, faster processing, and other benefits that can highly help you out, especially in a time where businesses are struggling with higher fees and less consumer satisfaction and less customers overall. So I think this is just important to highlight that, look at that. And then the other thing, Jerry, I want to talk about is what about the ones that are standard, like Stripe and PayPal, where this is the fee and this is what it is, and you really can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. So like, and the part of this goes back to the framing again. Like, if you know what your fee structure is, like, factor it into your pricing structure. Like, when you watch the show like Shark Tank, they talk about profit margin. So it's like, what's the cost? What's the cost of the good? What's the cog, right? Uh, so cost of good, and so like, if I order the product and I get it shipped here and blah 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 blah, all that's factored in. So many times, like when it comes to a fee structure, I will put in the wiggle room, like, because what if I have to get stuff, what if I have to print some stuff out? What if they add more people? Well, what? So you factor like some wiggle room in there. You can do the same thing with these fees. And as a business owner, it would be wise to be shopping around to see which option should you use. Stripe, authorized.net, like which one is going to give you the best option. Some people just automatically jump in and use, like, what is it, was Square or PayPal, and things that are easy to set up. And they might be paying a higher percentage, not even realizing it, versus looking at, okay, which processing option is going to be the best for my business,
You're
because all of
absolutely
them charge different things.
Yep, you're absolutely correct. And there's one more thing that you have to consider, and that is whether that processor works with your other uh, if you're online more than anything. If you're offline, it really doesn't matter. You can shop around because you're typically going to swipe the card. But online, it's a little bit different, and some things connect and work with some merchants and not others. So when we talk about the online portion, it's you have to do a little bit more research, and I can say that. There are more things that connect with Stripe than any other platform, even though authorized.net has been around the longest. Stripe is will connect with more services, and so sometimes um, you may be limited based on what your software you're using that needs to use the processor. So in some cases, you may be limited to just Stripe or something similar. The other thing, Jerry, I can share with you from experience is that sometimes some merchants depend on how this if we're talking about online transactions, some software will charge transactions one way and another will charge it another way. So I'm going to talk specifically about reoccurring billing. And so one merchant I had would charge, it would take a credit card, and in their system, they would um, secure the credit card. They would, set it up in their system so that nobody could see it other than the last four digits. And then they would physically charge the card every single month for reoccurring. Another system would actually send the transaction to set up reoccurring billing within the merchant, and that merchant would handle the reoccurring billing on that side. And the two different ways were um, highly different on how the card was processed and how things like happened if the card wasn't charged or if the card needed to be updated. And the convenience factor and how they notified you was critical if you're doing reoccurring billing. So sometimes it's not only important to look at the rates, but also understand how the process happens so that you won't miss out. I know some companies, some big companies, have had real big problems because they didn't realize that all of a sudden they weren't being charged their customers weren't being charged on a regular basis, and there was no notification set up, and they didn't realize this for months, and they was trying to figure out why they had cash flow problems, and it's because they didn't the specifics. When it comes to getting money, right? You got to know the specifics for your business. If somebody's handing you cash, right, you got to have the specifics on who in your business is handling that cash, right? If and you have to have the checks to make sure that the amount that they said was coming in is actually coming in and it matches what gets deposited and all that stuff. But online, the same thing. Like people have this idea about making money on the internet, but they don't think out the specifics of how does the money get to your account. And understanding how
Right.
merchant account works and the fees is really, really important for you to get that down so that you can be profitable in your business, especially when businesses fail at the rate they're failing. Even before the pandemic, it was still 25% of business fail within the first year, and up to 50% fail within the first 5 years, right? And most don't make it to 10 years. So it's like, Jerry, you with the number of years you have in business, and myself, this is something that we know that this is really important when it comes to understanding your business. You can't just, leave it up to merchants and software systems to charge the money. You really have to understand how it's doing it, when it's going to do it, and make sure it gets to your account and that you're paying the right fees and the lowest amount of fees possible. So that's my 2 cents on processing. Jerry, you got anything else to add?
No, I think you're on track. I agree with you. Um, 100%. Um, it's about a, what do you call it? How well it works. Understanding the fees, understanding all the details, knowing that how do the processors actually how are they compatible with what you're using, and um, you have to monitor it. The key is like from the psychology perspective, which is what we started talking about. Is like how do you frame it? A lot of people aren't thinking about the when the person walks out the door and okay, you got your processing fee covered, but do they really want to come back? So I'm not saying that, oh, the businesses are bad or evil or whatever. It's just like, hey, you weren't really thinking about the psychology of the sale. You weren't really thinking about the psychology of the transaction. You didn't put a lot of thought into how you dealt with this customer interaction, in order to, make it uh, a worthwhile feeling.
Yep.
So all those things have to factor in if you want people to, because for me, and how my client base works, like when you're dealing with like a higher level of relationship with those clients, the last thing you want is to have somebody thinking that you're violating their trust as the client. And it's like, oh, you're doing something that seems a little shady when you're thinking like, oh no, it's just a business practice.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, listen, man, I want to thank you for bringing this topic up and sharing your experience. And I hope, you know, you learn something about credit card processing fees and can apply it to your business. With that, we have a great show lined up for you next week. So make sure you tune in to Technology Tuesday. If you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the comment or join us on our group at technologytuesday.com. Until next week, have a good one. Be safe. Take care.